Hello, hello.
Hello, we are back for another, but a super special episode of Priestesses Prescribe.
So special. We're so excited because we're going to be talking about something that is, I don't want to say it's controversial. It's not controversial actually at all. It's just a common theme. And I think it's controversial in that many people may not know the best way to do this, which is clearing their space, their negative energy, and calling in the right energy,
Right.
which is, I mean, who doesn't want that? Everyone wants that. But I need to talk to you about something really important before
Okay.
we start. And it's The Real Housewives of New York.
My favorite show ever.
Your favorite show ever. And I just want to know from your perspective, like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of mix of personalities happening here. What I noticed when I looked at all of the signs of our current cast, we've got some earth signs. Leah's a Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
She definitely has other placements. I don't know what they are, but they're more fiery, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Love Leah though.
Love Leah. And she shakes up the energy in such a way that's almost like an air sign too, where it's like, there's more going on there. We've got Scorpio energy with Ramona. And
She's a Scorpio.
Yeah. And she used to have Bethany as a Scorpio as well. No longer. So they used to butt heads, but also really understand each other, when they got naked in the pool.
Yes, in Mexico. Love that episode.
Love that episode. So Scorpio.
Yeah.
They were fighting and then they were loving,
Loving. Chest to chest, breast to breast.
Breast to breast, heart to
heart. Heart to heart. Mm-hmm.
So that was a thing. And we've got Dorinda, we've got Sonia as Zach.
Okay.
So Dorinda and Sonia are close to Ramona's birthday, which is why they always talk about why don't we all do our birthdays together, because it's end of November, beginning of December. And Luann is a Taurus, which is she's pretty Taurian.
Yeah.
Those big necklaces,
yes. And the cabaret goodness.
Yeah, she really throws you for a loop, that Lou. And she's a steadfast character.
Yeah, she is.
She's still always on the show.
Okay,
but it's a lot. We don't have any air signs.
Right.
So we have
water, right?
Well, no, Ramona, Scorpio.
Ramona, yes. Okay.
But we don't have any air to add levity here. I think that's missing, no?
What sign was Tinsley?
Leo.
She was a Leo. She was very airy though, just in personality.
She's got some air placements for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was but very the detriment of the Leo tendencies, that it's all about me. If it's not about me, I'm freaking out. Right. Literally the most Leo thing ever is her being in the Big Apple Circus, hosting the Big Apple.
Right. Yes. The ringleader and the lion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Crazy. Her walking in that she's having a real resurgence moment for her. But her ego was very, very bruised for most of she's on the show, really.
Yeah. It seems as if, although I love this season and I love Leah, we are missing essential energy. We are. Now that Bethany, who I adore, she's no longer with us. And Tinsley, I think if Tinsley stayed, there would be better synergy. And also, it also feels like Leah is the baby, which she is, just in age, but it also feels as if she's having a tough time finding her footing with the group because she's looking to them as maternal figures. Not just Ramona. I feel like all of them, and it's hard. It's hard to assert yourself when you're trying to give like elderly respect and mature respect. 'Cause I don't want to call them elderly because I love them. I love them. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is, like, you know, like, imagine if you're in a situation where you have to work with a group of older women and you're the youngest.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a hazing situation first and foremost, but then also, like, how do you find your voice in the midst of, you know, people who may not want to hear you? So it's a weird dynamic. And I think if Tinsley stayed, maybe she could have assisted, her and Leah at least would have had their bond, that their voices could have been heard together, versus like Tinsley's own voice being stomped out last season and Leah's voice being stomped out this season.
That's a really good perspective. I think it's funny that you say hazing, which is what happens to any new cast member.
Yeah.
Aside from Garcelle, because she's come in and really owned it, I just think they have reverence for her.
Yeah.
She is at a different stage in her life where she just really commands respect. It's different than Leah. Leah's like definitely the rising star, but when you look at the age differences and life experience differences, there's a lot between them. There's 20 years age difference between her, basically, with the women of New York. But why, this is like a larger conversation. Why do we need to haze a new cast member? Every single new cast member that starts these franchises, for the most part, save a select few, are iced out. Look at Shannon Bedore. The way I don't like OC, really.
Neither do I, but you're right.
Knocking on death's door, like, you know, we need a transformation there. Hello?
Andy. No, kidding.
Let it go. Just let them die. They need to just let. Sorry to say, but you know, the way she treated Kelly, then they became best friends. Like, Vicky started before her. It kind of started off this like women not supporting women phase, and I hate that about I love everything about that show, obviously, but that one aspect that I really just think is so unnecessary.
Yeah, no, agreed. And it really goes across all franchises. Like you said, the OC, even with the teaser of the new season of Potomac, the new woman that's joining, you can already tell they're like gunning for her. Before her with Candace. Granted, Candace and I don't see eye to eye, but that's fine. Huh?
Problematic.
Yeah, a bit. But granted, she did have a lovely rant about Kanye and the Kardashians that I did appreciate recently. But other than that, Candace, it's interesting. But still, they did not have to treat her that way. But you're correct. Especially because so many impressionable women, I don't even want to say young girls, because even within our own, you know, more adult age bracket, like, these shows still have a stamp on our psyche and how we have friendships and how we communicate. So it's correct. Like, we don't need to haze new people or create this energy of dysfunction, right? Because then once you create that energy of dysfunction, now what do you have to do? Clear it, you know? And if you don't know how to do so, it becomes challenging.
That is a really good segue that I don't even think you really meant to do. Well, maybe you're pretty artful. I don't know. That's really good. You need to clear dysfunction.
Right.
One last thing I'll say is that I don't know we watch the show if it didn't have that level of dysfunction.
Right, that's true.
I just realized, like, do I want to watch them all getting along?
Right. That is true. I love dysfunction, so I don't have it in my own life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We can look in spirituality, we call that contrast. This is what we want, and this is what we do not want. Right. Sometimes it's in the same person, like Bethany. Success, dysfunction, success.
Yeah, I love Bethany.
I know. She's what we're missing, and many have said this, so it won't just be us, but like she was the commentator. She was the Greek chorus. She always had the hottest take, the realest take, the truest take. Many times she wasn't engaging in the conflict itself. Again, that was not always the case, but she She had the voice of reason.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, and her in a very sarcastic but just authentic way. Yeah,
She's so funny.
I love her. Love her.
So let's clear, if we're clearing the Real Housewives of New York if we're looking at them as a space, as a
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Can you, because what you told me about saging and clearing spaces is actually quite new to me. So I would love to, will you just tell me how to clear a space and how to, on a very basic level, and then we're going to get specific, how to move forward.
Yeah, so there are multiple ways to clear spaces. So if we're specifically going with Housewives and Housewives of New York, I think a space that needs to be cleansed for multiple reasons is Bluestone Manor. It's Bluestone Manor.
Oh my God, yeah.
100%. And first of all, that house is just gorgeous. Can we just talk about that? Absolutely gorgeous. But for such a beautiful home, there's so much energy that's living there, not only from, you know, Dorinda and maybe her stuff, right? Because she's a human being with highs and lows and ebbs and flows, and it stays in her home. On top of the fact that she shared that home with Richard, her late husband, who's no longer here, and all the memories that they share. And then on top of having these crazy women come into her home when she's just trying to give them the grandest dinner party she possibly can, and they're just causing chaos. So I'm here to tell all of you the many different ways that the Bluestone Manor can be cleared. And if Dorinda, if you're listening, please call me and I will personally come to your house and do it for you. But Alex and I are both coming for sure. She will give you astrology. I will clear it all, and then we'll just have dinner.
Those women are very drunk there. Is that an energy that lives there? Is it an energy of wanting to dull the pain, or?
It could be. I think that it is. So first I will say that in reference to sage, right? Because typically we know that sage and Palo Santo are the two most well-known ways of clearing energy through fire. And not that those two,
I have
yes, thank you for showing, Alex. Not that these two forms of clearing energy are not great, they are, but specifically when it comes to sage is an instrument of clearing that requires you to replace energy that has been cleared, right? So I'm at the Bluestone Manor and I'm using my sage wand, and now it's great because I'm clearing out all the energy. All of Luann's talking about her being the countess and the greatest cabaret star, like, fine. All that has now left the building. However, I now need to replace all of that energy that's left. So that would require me to, you know, let's say ask Dorinda, you know, what kind of energy do you want in your home? She'll say love. All right, now I take my sage stick and I write love in the air. If she says prosperity, I'll do that. You can use symbols, you can write actual words. Another thing that people may know of is this idea of a sigil. So it's like a phrase or a term that is represented in a specific like art form or symbol. So if you're into that stuff, like you can always use those as in the sky as you're using sage too. But just the main point of this is with sage, you can clear energy, and please do that. But you also have to replace what you cleared with positive intention. And that requires either you thinking something positive, maybe you chanting something positive, or you actually writing something of beauty and abundance within the space so that can be called in.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's sage.
That is very new to me. I had not heard that before you told me, and mind blown. That's really helpful because I'm just also thinking back into times when I've cleared the space with sage. I do it pretty much every month, I would say every season at least. And yeah, then if it's kind of a vacuous energy space at that point and anything can come in, I don't know what my energy, that could have been chaotic energy just replaced. Right?
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I do try to do it when my boyfriend's not home because he doesn't like the smoke.
Yeah.
and the smell. So I know it's definitely my energy, but how many energy planes do we pick up during one day? I mean,
Right. Yeah. And one thing that I really try to have people understand, and I do this like through a meditation as well, is like imagine, like just visualize yourself in your day. Like I don't, we collect spiritual garbage all day. We collect spiritual energy, negative energy all day. And as we go through our day, it attaches yourself to you. If you brush somebody in the street and you have a negative interaction, they like literally maybe just gave you 2 or 3 bags of, negative spiritual energy that is now attached to you. And then what do? We go home and then it sits in our living room. And if you don't clear that out after a month's time, 6 months time, a year's time, 10 years time, imagine if we could physically think of how many bags of spiritual garbage would be sitting in your home. And now we're wondering why we're angry, we're upset, why just so much chaos is happening within our space that's supposed to be of peace. So clearing energy is like super duper duper important. And yes, like everyone doesn't prefer like sage and smoke, which is fine. But there are other ways to clear energy that are more like air, that are more for those who like pretty sense and like air related energy. So another really great one that I use from an essential oil perspective is hyssop. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is just a really large bottle of hyssop. And if you can see, it's like almost gone. Mind you, I probably bought this like a month ago. That's how often I use it. And you can use it in your diffuser. If you don't have a diffuser, feel free to have a cup of hot water. And all you have to do is pick your favorite number. I would say a number higher than 5, right? Because you want it to really work. And just add a few drops into the cup or your diffuser and let it sit, and put a cup or diffuser in every room of your home. And it does the job of sage, if not better, because you don't have to put another intention in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So it's less work. It's less work than sage is. And if you want a compatible blend, you can also use cedarwood, which is a great grounding blend, which is a great grounding essential oil, and use these two together, and you're going to clear out all the negativity in addition to coming back to yourself, which is the most important.
I love that. I'm definitely going to purchase both of those items. Yeah. I also think it's interesting when I think about astrology and relating to what you're suggesting. Think about your chart and specifically your big 3 and what element is missing. And that's most likely the one that you're going to want to use to shake up the energy or change invite in what you're lacking, I guess, for lack of a better term. Actually, that was a pretty good term.
That was perfect.
There is no better term. That is, so for me, I'll give you an example. And I know Erica's too, so I'll give her as an example too. She has 2 elements she can choose from. I have Capricorn rising, Gemini sun, and Scorpio moon. I am missing fire. So I actually do like sage. I like that act of going around, of lighting the candle. I think I gravitate towards that because I really don't have many fire placements at all in my chart. I have mostly water and air. So that for me does feel like the right way to invite in. And like a candle, for example, the one I have closest to me is the Staff and Transformation candle. That's a nice way for me I usually light one before a reading. That's more of a neutral, or it has like sandalwood in it or like a cedar smell. That is helpful for grounding, but it's just helpful for me to look at the fire, literally. Erica has double Cancer and a Sagittarian moon. So she misses air and she misses earth.
Story of my life.
So the air energy could be some, waving in the air, could be something like that, but it also makes sense that you prefer that sandalwood or hyssop essential oil because that is a herbal blend, right? in your watery nature. You can't escape that, I guess.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. I love that. I love how you described, like looking at your chart to figure out what you're missing, because that goes in so many different directions, whether to understand you better, but also to understand like the friends that you choose, your partnerships, all of that. So I'm curious that if we really sat down, not to bring it back to Housewives, but we always must bring it back to Housewives. I'm curious that if we looked at their charts, like, or let's say we were here to help producers pick a new cast member, like what is that energy that's missing? And then how can we bring that person in for a better and more productive show? Yeah.
We're missing air. We're missing air. So
Okay.
I don't know, like we're only going by the sun signs. I have done a deep dive of research, which I'm happy to do. This is something I love doing so much. But in the effort of time, we're missing what we said Bethany had was that chorus element. I wouldn't be surprised if she had some sort of rising sign that allowed her to be able to do that. That might be air. But she has this element to her where she is able to look at things for what they are, describe them, and give us as the viewers a real communication play-by-play. We're missing that. We have everybody's personalities sort of mixing and mingling. That's why there's a lot of dysfunction, because there's really nothing to lift us up. And actually, there's no voice of reason. There's no mediator. There's nobody here like, hey, everybody, you're all shouting the same thing at one another.
Right.
You know? So we could definitely use a Gemini. They're the communicators, mediators. Geminis are also high drawn a lot of times. Like I have Gemini sun, so I would say I'm pretty expressive. That does tend to translate on these shows. You need someone who like can communicate and like will get animated.
Yeah.
But really a Libra would do the trick. A Aquarian, I mean, we could do some, and I'm not nominating myself for the job. I think I'm a little young for a housewife, and I'm not married yet, so not divorced yet. Just kidding. But that's really not my wheelhouse. There's no in between, by the way. I guess it's Vanderpump, but like they're so dysfunctional and young seeming that there's no like middle ground here. But actually, the Potomac ladies are a little younger.
Yes, Karen and Giselle. I would say they're the only two that are more mature ladies out of the group. Yeah.
So I would say that if we're talking about dysfunction and what works on camera, having an imbalance of the elements is cool, because it means they're never going to inherently agree and their value sets are different, which means that you have this energy going on that's dysfunctional. But you really do need the missing element for sure to help kind of make that a little bit more cohesive to watch. Now, I'm very much enjoying this season to watch, but
for sure.
But you do need to talk to somebody about it. Like I always find myself either talking to you or I have a couple girlfriends that really love Bravo, and we need to talk through what's going on. We do that normally, but I don't know. When you're missing someone who's explaining it, yes, you do need to sort of like talk.
Right.
Oh, I think I have this. I can do better for what it is. So take that to any task. I've been saying this lately. I just find it so important. We need astrology consults on really all of these reality TV shows.
100%.
Could it possibly not serve us? So you can just tell when there's an imbalance in that regard. I think it's crazy that for Married at First Sight, they do not consult an astrologer. They're matching these people without knowing anything about their charts. They have never met. They are matching them sometimes on very superficial things. Like they're both active, they're both social.
Right.
And the season that was on Netflix, Amber was matched with Matt. Amber has abandonment issues from her mother. Matt was a transient basketball player that had no intention on staying in DC, which is where they were, was it DC? North Carolina, where they were filming. they went to his house. He had almost nothing. Like, had like a drawer. He was staying at a friend's house. So lo and behold, what does he do? Leave her for sometimes days at a time. What does she do? She's upset. That's a really crazy. Astrology could be one element of this, but like, let's not bring in generational trauma to this new relationship.
Right. Yeah.
That's the best place to start.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think Indian matchmaking. Have you seen that on Netflix?
No, I have not. I've heard about it. I definitely saw Love at First Sight. That's the other show, right?
Married at First Sight. Oh, Love is Blind.
Yeah, that one. That one.
And the
yeah, I did see that one. I will say that I agree. Like, there is a show. I don't know the name of it at the top of my head. There is a show. I believe it is on OWN, maybe, where they have a counselor walking them through their struggles, which is important, right? You have some kind of guidance, you have some kind of mediator. But I think that that's not the only form of mediation. Having an astrologer, having a wellness practitioner, like, we don't just stare into the sky and looking at the clouds and the moon and playing with essential oils for the sake of, like, for nothing. Like, we literally, like, this is our work, this is what we do, and we also can contribute to relationship building, the foundations of that, helping people understand each other, helping people use elemental items to understand each other and clear out dysfunction. So I do wish, and I do hope that in the near future, astrologers, wellness practitioners, in addition to therapists, will be used and a part of active conversations in reference to love, life, and everything else. Yeah.
I think we're moving in that direction, which is a good thing. Most people want to know the signs at the very least, or they want to understand themselves with astrology, which is just difficult for me to just see that happening. And yes, they do have counselors on these shows, but
yeah,
Love is Blind, they did not really.
No, I don't think they did. No.
They did. They didn't show it on camera, which Married at First Sight to me is the craziest, because they're literally matching people without knowing anything about their birth chart, and I just find that to be really, really irresponsible.
Super irresponsible.
2 fire signs.
Yeah, explosive.
It can all work, but you just have to, like, kind of guardrail people and say, this is what you'll probably deal with in a relationship. I think there's always themes that pop up, so you might as well know it ahead of time if you really want to get work.
For sure.
I want to also talk about the catalyst for why we wanted to do this episode about clearing spaces. And it's a little heavy. It's kind of a left turn, but I've been having dreams where either the devil visits or a demon will visit. And what's happened in at least the 2, and I believe things happen in 3s, so I'm sure it will happen again, but I had the devil embody me in one dream. I was possessed in one dream, but I was from the vantage point of where I could see myself. So I wasn't experiencing it. I was looking at it, and I inherently knew in my dream to Google how to do an exorcism on yourself, and got the answer and was able to do it. It was definitely scary, and I wrote about it, and that was really cathartic for me, but that was one. So I took that to mean the possession of myself was like letting go of control. That's something I've been working on my whole life. I'm specifically working on it right now. So that is what I took that to mean. But nevertheless, symbol is there, devil. Then the other night, I had a situation in my dream, which was kind of like a circle of sorts of people. And there were demons present, and they were asking me if I could figure out how to remove the demons. Or I kind of took it upon myself as a responsible party. and I took sage, and the sage, I would take it like a stick like this, and it wouldn't take hold. The fire wasn't working. The fire and earth were not commingling. So I was like, okay, that's not working. So I just got the big ass lighter that I had, those ones that you could light a fire with it. It's got a long stick. And I was able to, with my intention, draw the demon out and light on fire and dissipate the energy. So it was intention and fire. And I don't know what the third one will be. I'll report back. But I obviously want to talk to you about it because, one, that's crazy. And two, this is literally the intention of, it doesn't have to be as dark as getting demons out, but this negative energy or what that represents. If we do need to do that, whether it's in a dream or in reality, does that make sense what I did?
Yeah, I think it totally made sense. And it's fascinating the level of intuitive connection that you have, because you actually did something that's like a huge determining factor of needing to take an energy shift, if that makes sense. So I'll explain. So if there's ever a time that you use your regular cleansing or clearing tool, and for whatever reason, let's say you're using sage and it does not light, and you know that it always lights. Like, this is not a fresh piece of sage that you've never used before, and maybe it's just having a hard time lighting itself. Like, no, this is your traditional way of cleansing and clearing, and you've used it before, but for some reason it's not lighting. That's a huge red flag. If you are using your hyssop and your cedar wood and you still feel that heavy energy and it has yet to go away, huge red flag. That's when you really have to, one, become aware that something is not right and pivot extremely fast, which you did in your dream, which was amazing. Yeah. So I will say that, like, that's like, I commend you for doing that. And that's just something I want you all to know, general knowledge about.
You cut out. You're cutting out.
I hit mute by accident. Sorry, everyone.
Back up a little bit, and I want you all to know.
Yes. So, what was I saying? Okay, so the second thing, in reference to seeing like the devil or like demons in dreams and things like that, I'm not a dream interpreter, so I can only speak to this from a certain perspective. What I will say, in thinking of it in the tarot tradition, those kinds of, when the devil card shows itself, it speaks to this idea of bad habits, something that's holding you, keeping you stuck, or resistance to change, fear, like some form of blockage. So there has to be, one, this willingness to shift and change, which Alex, you did in your dreams. Like, you were super aware that, okay, something has to change, or you're hyper aware that, okay, I'm going to get a third message. Hopefully that third message will be the instructions, or the piece of the puzzle as to like why everything has been happening, or how to get rid of it, or even like what that thing specifically is that needs to be relinquished, that needs to be let go, and to bring in the new energy. So clearing spaces, clearing quote unquote negative energy. It's not a scary process. If anything, it's the best process ever. You need it. The same way you take a shower to clean yourself, cleanse your body, you have to cleanse your soul. You have to cleanse your intentions. You have to cleanse your home. It requires that work. We can't just think that our home is cleaning it with a mop and a broom and a dustpan is enough. We are living spiritual beings that requires for us to do our spiritual work too. So I don't necessarily have any like advice on what to do, because I really think that you did everything that you should have done. I think the missing piece at this point is maybe reflecting on what what is the thing that's holding you? Like, what is that shackle on the foot that the devil has like a connection to, and that's like shifting and moving itself? But I know that either that answer and the answer of how to move forward within that will come. It always does.
Yeah. I think if I'm reflecting on that, and I think we talked about this in our last podcast, but Capricorn energy, we're moving out of that. That's the energy of money and greed in the detriment. And I feel like I'm in a good spot with money, but I'm still adherent to some structures that I wish I weren't. Yeah. And there's it's probably like a scarcity lack mindset sometimes too. Can I really go out on my own? Can I really do what I want to do and really break free? And I have trust that I can, but I still have one foot in this other space, and that is keeping me shackled. Like you said, the shackle comparison was what the light bulb went off. Ding, ding, ding. Mm-hmm. So if anyone's struggling with that, let me know, because I'm right there with you. And it's definitely going to happen. The transition, I can feel it. And I think for anyone who's empathetic or intuitive to, and we all are, you tend to feel transitionary moments sooner than they're actually happening to you. So it can be a frustrating moment in time when you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, essentially. This happens a lot with my clients too. I just had a couple clients recently. I have one client that I love so much, and she's been dealing with stuff at work, and she's waiting for the transition. She felt it way sooner than it was actually happening. So now that it's happening, she feels at peace and calm. I am always calm in the conflict, but I have my anxiety in the anticipation of the conflict or the anticipation of the change or transition. But in the transition, and that's probably familial stuff too, I'm like, amazing. I love transition. I love change. But that means that previously in my life, I sought situations that would always be transient or chaotic. And right now, my life's really good. There's only one thing I would change. And it's kind of what I'm talking about now, like going off on my own and really doing High Priestess full time, but just not ready yet.
Yeah. And in time, like, it'll happen. And I guess the one thing I want everyone who's listening and watching to know, that even us as your practitioners, Alex as your astrologer, me as your wellness coach, like we go through these cycles with you. We are not all knowing beings. We are not, these people who are sitting in on a throne. Granted, like, we love the idea of our high priestess's throne. Like, come on, like, that's amazing. But at the same time, like, we are going through this journey with you all. Like, in one thing that I believe both helps us is coming on the podcast and talking through some of our stuff. We also, for our new moon, full moon readings, like, they apply to us too. So yeah, clearing energy. I think your dreams were super spot on. I think they were a call to transformation and ascension, for sure. And I'm excited to see the lover's energy manifest itself once the shackle is released, because I know it'll be beautiful and full of harmony and union, for sure.
Thanks, girl.
You're welcome. Of course.
Place to close for today. If you all have questions about what we've talked about today, and we talked about a lot, just to recap, we talked about the Real Housewives, how to fix franchises in reality television. We talked about how to clear your space of negative and call in the positive, or setting your intention. And then we talked about my dreams, which typically would be boring, but these ones were crazy. And so we talked about the symbolism there, what's going on for me personally, and what that could be in relation to. And so if you guys relate, if you want to ask a question, if you also had crazy dreams and you want us to analyze them or give you a reading, that's what we're here for. We're here for prescription, and we're here for the community, and we're here for you as much as we're here for each other. So let us know. You can always email us at priestessesprescribe@gmail.com. You can like, share, subscribe this podcast with your friends. We would be so eternally grateful if you did that. And we'll see you here. And by here, I mean Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
Anchor,
Google Podcasts, and the like, wherever you get your podcasts, next week on the new moon.
we love you all. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you soon. Bye.